Uh, I am good. Um, yeah, I've had a really nice day off, and I didn't sleep very well last night, so I took a long nap in the middle of the day and got some lunch and coffee. You know, just chilling, just
What
chilling.
time what time did you wake up
This morning or this afternoon?
this afternoon?
Uh, I think like 1:15.
Damn, dude.
Yeah,
You've been awake for like 2 hours.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. You're like a fresh baby at the moment. Okay.
Well, I woke up at 7 originally, and I walked around um like Union Square and got a coffee and had a cigarette and just listened to a podcast, hung out. Um,
Which one?
I'm listening to this. I used to listen to this podcast a lot when I was a little younger, but it's the Pete Holmes podcast. You made it weird.
I've heard of it. Haven't
Yeah,
listened yet.
he's an LA comic, and he's just like good friends with all the people that I love a lot. Like he interviewed, I think his name's Ryan Holiday, um, and like Robert Greene, and he just like
Mm,
he's into like psychology and spirituality and stuff.
dude, that's cool.
So it's fun to listen to, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, my day's been all pretty much all work. My girlfriend Lizzie came down to kind of work at a coffee shop with me for a bit. Uh
cute.
yeah, it was nice. And then yeah, I've just been sort of ever since she left for the past 3 hours, just kind of miserably typing away. And it gets pretty dark here kind of early. So I don't know, just getting over that uh SAD, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Just leaning into it. So dude, I don't know. Do you feel do you feel comfortable talking about your newest release?
Yeah, I feel comfortable talking about everything. I'm totally an open book. It's just like when we're on the phone. I don't give a fuck.
Dude, you really don't,
No.
honestly. Um well, yeah, I think it'd be cool to talk about just because I don't know. I think you know that I'm into the album, but I've never really told you my thoughts about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have questions too. Um,
Okay, great.
yeah. Uh,
Well, before we start, we should probably introduce ourselves and talk about how we know each other.
oh
Um,
yeah.
I don't think a lot of people in my world know who you are. Uh,
Likewise.
Probably
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, but we met because I worked at a restaurant in LA, and your roommate told me that you had a home studio, and
Yeah.
I really wanted to like work on some stuff. And at the time, I had a couple of really bad songs, and so he gave me your number, and we connected. I went to the studio space, and um, it's funny because I don't know if you think about it this way, but the trajectory of our friendship was a very like slow ascent, you know? Like
Mhm.
we didn't know each other at first, and the studio was weird to me. Like it was a really strange vibe, and like I was like in a weird place in my life, and it was just such a at first like I just remember going there and like getting really high and being alone in that home studio and
Oh yeah.
um recording Your Love Is a Light, like the original Your Love Is a Light, and um that,
You spent
so
you
anyway,
spent quite a few hours alone in there. I'm remembering now.
yeah, I spent a lot of time alone in that studio.
Yeah.
And I kept coming back, and you would just let me pay you, like a couple hundred here and there, and you were always really sweet. And then over time, I think we became pretty good friends. And I don't know when that clicked really, but I just remember going on drives with you and listening to Adrian Lanker and going on hikes and like going out to eat and stuff. And um, we quickly realized we had a lot in common as far as the way our minds work and what our interests are and stuff. But yeah, you become just a really solid friend in my life, and um, because you have such a knowledge of music and because you're an artist in your own right, it feels extra special to know that you enjoy my work and um, to have you as kind of like a supporter and a participant in what I do. Because I feel like you're one of the few people in my life that like really gets where I'm coming from, and like the kind of music I love. And a lot of people like what I do, but they don't totally know like who Andy Schaff is or like Adrian Lanker or
The good ones.
like you and I have just gone down some rabbit holes with music and um, so anyways, that's my version of our friendship, I guess.
Wow. Dude. Yeah, I never really thought about it, but it was a pretty like I like whenever you were first coming around, I was just oh, he's like a sparkly singer-songwritery kind of dude, but I didn't know um for some reason until after a while that not only were you into cool stuff, but you were into like the Sam Harris podcast for a while,
Oh yeah.
and like shit like that, that I think over time that's more the kind of stuff we started talking about, like
Right.
ideas outside of music. Um
Totally. And
and
then
that
once the
yeah,
pandemic hit, like we just kind of went to town on what was happening in society and like I
right.
still, dude, I'm the biggest fan I've ever been of Sam Harris. Like I still can adore that guy and I think he's just built something really smart. Like he's just nobody's in charge of what he says or what he does and he's a really eloquent speaker and I don't agree with everything, but I love the conversations he has and
Right.
um anyways, but yeah, that I remember we talked a lot about that kind of stuff. And I turned you on to Jason Hall.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you did. I was going to bring him up mostly because of the so I was going to say this might be a good segue, but uh, one thing I was thinking was, even though I think we are familiar and fans of some of the same artists, for me, there was only maybe three songs on the whole album that really reminded me of someone else. Um, it was the last three songs. Like Come and Go just gave me huge Elliott Smith vibes, and then
Hmm.
Drowning and I think Just Like Yesterday just really gave me huge Granddaddy vibes for some
Really
reason. Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
Um, but the rest of it, like, I mean, I can think of some sort of adjacent stuff, and maybe it's because like I don't really listen to like Damien Rice or like uh Sparkle Horse too much,
Right.
or
Like
or
Sufjan,
Mark Kozelek outside of like Benji, like I haven't heard much of his soul like uh
his other work.
stuff,
Yeah.
his other work. Yeah. I'm familiar with Sufjan, but uh, it was just weird. Like for me, something I do, and it might be kind of a toxic listening trait of mine that especially pertains to like friends. But I'm always listening in the back of my mind. I'm listening with the intent of, what does this sound like? Like what other artist does this sound like? But for me, songs like my favorite songs on the record, like Awful Time and Karen Street and Impossible and stuff, those all sound like you in particular. You know, I can't really think of, again, I can kind of relate it to other people, but nothing like jumped out at me at a listen besides like, wow, this is really Ashton-y, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I'm glad you said that. I think it is, everyone has their influences and their musical sensibilities, but I really think this is the most complete project and the most representative of like who I am as a songwriter and an artist, and what I just make what I would want to listen to, and
Yeah.
um, I think it's pretty original too, and I don't know, it's refreshing to talk to you about this
Well,
because again, there's like so few people who are as thoughtful as you are and like
I mean
actually
that.
listen. So,
Thank you, man. That was kind of I forgot to add the question part to that, but it was like, that was my experience. But when you listen back on the record, do you think, oh my gosh, I'm copying all these people? Or do you think like
no,
there's
no,
okay.
not at all. I've never thought that. I really don't think it sounds like anyone else. It's just that, when I released Awful Time, I had a little bit of like a marketing plan or like a release strategy for it, and I've started to have to think about this kind of shit to like book gigs and to like get, music blogs to write about me. It's like people need to know like what to put their finger on.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so you have to think about, okay, like who's my audience? But while I'm writing, I never ever think about stuff like that. The only time I think
Hmm.
about it is like if something feels too reminiscent to like a song I've heard or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But, when I'm writing, like I just really have my own identity and like the way I like to do
Yeah.
things. And, like on this record especially, like you can hear how much I'm obsessed with like the symmetry of a song, like even how it's structured, and
Hmm.
I like things that feel like really kind of complete and like go to places but not at like, the listener's expense, and I just know what I would want to hear, and that's what I make, and I think that I do have a pretty original ear and like original sensibilities. So no, I don't think it really resembles anything too much.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, I really only ask because sometimes I listen back to things that I've made and I go, every once in a while, it's kind of like less often, but I'll think that I'm copying something. And like oftentimes, those are the songs that come together sort of easy, or the ones that I'm most confident in right away, because they're so sort of easily identifiable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I think I also asked because have you always strike me as someone who's like uh wears you like wear your influences on your sleeve. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. I've never known that you approach it that way, because I think I sometimes I approach a song with, especially in a band setting, sometimes we just throw around phrases like, we should do a thing like the thing at the end of that one Radiohead song, you
Right.
know, and then we just
Yeah.
kind of riff on that sort of general idea,
I've
you know.
never done that in my life. I've never
Wow.
sat down and been like, I want to write something that sounds like this. Like,
Damn.
and the reason is because when I write, it's because I need to write. It's like an actual, you know, like I believe in exercising musical muscles, and I think it's great that people are really dedicated to like writing every day and stuff. But for me, like, I only write when I really have something bubbling up inside of me that I need to get out.
Right.
And I think it's just like a lot of the songs on Nightmare in Your Arms. I kind of been tripping out about this recently because I, I just released Alcatraz and I have a bunch of other work I'm, you know, other work I'm working on, other tunes I'm working out, and
Do you get the same sort of songwriter OCD where you don't want to use the same word twice in like a sentence or a
yes,
text?
I
Yeah.
fucking hate it. It's the worst.
Yeah, like if I'm sending a
Uh,
paragraph or an email, I like comb through the whole thing and make sure I'm only using synonyms of words, never like the same
yes,
one.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do the same thing in my songs, but yeah, the I guess what I'm trying to say is it's just a really elusive thing, and so many songs feel like they've just fallen into my lap.
Hmm.
Like I've never reached for anything or been like, I wish I could write like something like this or whatever. It's just uh, they just happen, and I think I've just kind of realized that I don't get to dictate when or how they happen or even what they sound like.
Right.
They just are, and like that to me feels really special and sacred, and um I've just learned like in life, the more you try to control things, like the worse the outcome is. And you
Mm,
just have to let things go and like let things come to you. And for some reason, dude, this record just came together. Like I wrote a lot of those songs in like a really short amount of time, very quickly, because I was really hurting and like it was my way of like reaching out for help, I guess. I don't know. So,
I forgot where I saw this. It might have been on one of your album story things that you've been doing. But you wrote Karen Street pretty quickly, right?
yeah, real fast.
Yeah.
And what I didn't mention on there was that I wrote it a long time after that relationship ended. Like I woke up one morning, I was in a totally different phase of my life, and I hadn't thought about her in a long time. And I woke up and it just came out. Like I remember like the second verse being like, "Oh, I know what this is about." Like I didn't even know what was happening yet, you know? And then I
Wow.
realized like, "Oh yeah, like, it just kind of became a tribute to that time in my life."
Dude, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like something you, well, I don't want to say can only write, but it seems like something that's better written with some distance to it. Like it seems like it has some sort of like uh
Nostalgia.
neutrality about it, but also nostalgia, like a sort of matter of fact. Dude,
Right.
so at the first time I listened to the album, you'd sent me like a Dropbox file of the whole thing
All the way through.
and all the way through. Yeah. And unfortunately I didn't have the speakers that I do now. And it was kind of the ones I was listening to were kind of trash, but it was still a really good listen. And uh Lizzie, my girlfriend, was there and we were listening to Karen Street. And she was like, the lyrics are something like when she wakes me up and she makes me eggs and I can call her honey, but her name is Liz or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And her name is Liz. And so we kind of looked at each other and we were like, and 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 dude, like I was like, you make eggs sometimes, and we eat eggs together. And so we we were having like this
So stupid.
it was like it was kind of a weirdly intimate moment. I mean, we were kind of being funny, but it was like we were like, "Aw, we have these moments together." And then you got to this lyric that was like, "I'm not in love with her. I'm just in love with being loved." And it totally killed the vibe. It was like, dude, it was rough.
Oh my God, that is
I was
so
like,
funny.
well, that's Liz and you're Lizzie, so it's two different.
Right.
But
Dude,
it
I
was
think
fun.
that's one of the best lines in the album for sure.
Agreed. I
And it
mean, that
just came
song
out
is chock
fire.
full of them.
Yeah.
It's got like this juxtaposition of being like maybe the poppiest, like lightest sounding song on the record, but I think there's something really heavy about uh like coming to that realization that you don't love someone, you're just in love with being loved, or like the imagery of reading letters without falling apart or something like that. But it all still sounds so happy and like we're on Second Street, it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because that's the song that people have loved the most, I've discovered. And I think people think it's really cute. And like
yeah.
at work, like the other day while we were setting up, I put that song on because I give zero fucks, and like everyone at work like really loves me and like respects what I do, and it was just part of a playlist that was on or something, and my manager, like he actually came to my release show, and he was like singing the chorus, and like it was like this
Oh,
really cute thing, you know. And that song does, it is really deceptive, and I think it takes a certain type of person to listen to an album like Nightmare in Your Arms and hear the chaos and dysfunction and like the darkness, you know, like it really is like it's a pretty like
that's
heartbreaking,
like, yeah, that's at least 95% of the album, I think,
right?
from
Yeah,
my recollection.
yeah, it is not, you know, the first album, like I remember when we were working on Nightmare in Your Arms in the studio, Greg was like, "Yeah, dude, like the first album we did, You Are My Sanity, like, you know, it was really good and what have you. Like we did a lot of fun things like production wise, but it was like a bunch of love songs about like your first relationship." And he was like, "And now like you've lived some life and these songs have some like gumption, you know, like there's
Yeah,
some real like
yeah,
real life experience going on in these." And I really appreciated that he said that, you know, because it just is a lot darker and like a little bit more mature, I think. Not that you can't write a mature, happy record, but you kind of can't anyways.
right.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, really? Oh,
I'm
okay.
kidding.
Um, yeah, but I don't know. This is kind of I don't know. It's a thought I had kind of about like to me, listening to the album is sort of uh, I don't know. There's a few like emotions that come with it, but for the most part, I think I would describe it as like uncomfortable, like the lyrics anyways, because I don't know, like I relate to some of it and I like am facing those ideas,
In
but
your life.
in my life, yeah.
Mm.
Um and even ones that I don't relate to, but I sort of like am familiar with from talking to you, it's painful stuff, like Come and Go uh is a
Oh yeah, you knew
yeah,
all about that relationship.
right. And it's like, but what I was thinking was like, um, it's just such a cool experience because it's like the production on the album is like sort of outstandingly good. And then, there's like a lot of just sort of pretty, relaxing songwriting. So it's not uncomfortable in the way that like listening to Death Grips is uncomfortable or
Right.
Swans or something like that. It's like,
Or like
it's
daughter.
like you're being, yeah, it's like you're being like, um, gently brought through dark, weighty, complex emotions.
Right.
That's generally how I feel about the album.
Can I ask
Um,
what things maybe you related to, like lyrically?
yeah, well, I mean, Come and Go, to I didn't relate to it as far as like as it's tied to a particular relationship, but I kind of relate to it in I moved from California to Chicago, and there's like uh, some relationships that I've kept up over the phone, but some that haven't, you know. So that's one. And then Karen Street, I think I've definitely felt, or I've come to the realization a couple times in my life that I'm not in love with someone. I just like not either not being alone or feeling loved, you know. Um, like what else? I don't I don't like to admit that have felt the sentiment, I think the main sentiment behind Every Time,
Oh, I
you
want.
know?
Oh, every time. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I forgot about that song.
I mean, that one's just all about like feeling well, to me, like feeling sort of unconfident and particularly being frustrated with feeling um that way, or being minimized or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can happily say I don't feel that way much anymore, but I can definitely relate to it, you know, like um and if I listen again, there's probably a few more, but uh yeah. I wanted to say something while I remember it. I haven't met Zach before, but I think his like contribution to the album is like a really cool special part of it. Um and I was wondering if you had ever considered like doing a Kings of Convenience, Simon and Garfunkel style like duo thing. I mean, I know that's kind of this record parts of it, but I mean like as an identity, like doing
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and I'm glad you feel that way. He sort of just seeped into the album, and he's like he has such a good work ethic that he would just be like, "Oh, this sounds really cool. Can I try something?" And I'd be like, "Sure," you know.
Yeah.
Um, but he will be very glad to know that you feel that way.
Dude, yeah, Drowning
And
was like I mean his
it's
contribution
pretty.
is really cool all over the record, but like not only his background vocals in Drowning, but then his like verse, how sort of differently he approached it, I thought added like a lot of depth to that song. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I sent that to him. He had never heard it, and I had written it like a year before or something. And he was like, "Dude, this is might be the most beautiful thing I've ever heard you write." Like he was just fell in love with it. And to me, like, he's been my best friend my whole life, and that meant the world to me. Like that was like more gratifying than like, any compliment I've really ever gotten. Like the fact that like I wrote something that really impressed him and amazed him was like super special. And then he fucking knocked that song out of the park. And it was really special too because he was familiar with that time in my life and that relationship. And um, he's just been such an integral part of my world for so long. Um, to answer your question, I want to do another record with him. Um, but there's a few songs on his upcoming album that I played on that he sings, and you know, we've
Hmm.
made we've made a good amount of music together this last year, actually. But I told him that when I get my hands on some more recording money, I want to book like some good, decent time at Prairie Sun in Santa Rosa, and I want him and I to make a record that's just piano and guitar and vocals.
Mm,
Um, just like a 5-song EP that's just gorgeous.
yeah.
And we used to be in a band together called Betty Luma in high school, and that's where we both learned like how to write and record and stuff like that. And we actually did okay. It's funny to look back on. It's like we were like doing things, and
Mhm.
he and I are the only people in that 4-piece band that are still like making music. Um,
Yeah.
and so I told him like we should really bring Betty Luma back and like make just like a slamming acoustic piano and guitar record together. But
Dude,
he's an interesting guy because he will not sing in front of anybody. Like you have to go out of the room. Like he doesn't do
wow.
vocals in the studios. Like he takes the music home with him and he has a really nice mic and he does it himself. But he's very private about his voice, and I've told him many times how beautiful and special his voice is. But he's still just kind of having, uh, he's still learning and growing a lot. I think as far as his confidence goes, and but I really, I mean, not only do I love him like more than anything ever, but I also admire his musicianship, and I really want to make a special record with him and bring back Betty Luma. So
Yeah, that's exciting. Like, I don't know, to me, you guys have such like distinct voices, like not only tones, but like approaches, but like sort of like to me it was kind of odd how well they worked together. And so
right.
yeah, the prospect of that EP sounds really cool. Um
Yeah, yeah.
let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, Karen Street is probably my third or fourth favorite on the record. I don't know. It's hard to rank,
Yeah.
but for me, my favorite is Awful Time.
Hmm.
I love that song, dude. It's really good. It's probably my most replayed. Um, like I think the first couple times I heard it, and even sometimes still today, like okay, you know how sometimes you'll be listening to like Kendrick or something, and he'll say something crazy, and you go like, you do that. I did that to Awful Time, dude. Like when you went into that, "I let you go," I was just like, seriously, fucking love that song.
Yeah, yeah. I love that song. Did you see the post I did about it today?
I did, yeah, and I was kind of like for after I think it was like a couple days ago. I was like, dude, where did the album stories go? And then finally they returned.
Yeah, yeah, I took a week off, but I posted that thing, and sometimes when you post something on social media, if it's too honest, like if it's really like you just don't give a fuck, it feels really uncomfortable. And I got that feeling after I posted. I was like, I tagged a bunch of people, and like I was really honest about my like career aspirations, and I feel kind of dumb. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like
Yeah,
that's how I feel, you know? Um,
right.
but I have a question for you. Did you ever think I would finish this record? And did you think it would be this good?
Um, uh, yes to your first question, and then no to your second one.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting, but I think like I don't know about good because I knew that you were working with Greg, who's like a pretty I've heard his uh production on your stuff before, and I really admire you as a songwriter, so I just kind of knew I knew it would be like good, but I didn't expect to like really be as into it as I am, like really be listening to it to and from work and just at home chilling and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, is there any other things that come to mind? Any songs you want to break down or artwork or what have you? There's no pressure.
No pressure.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Um, no, I think I've given all my thoughts
Yeah,
and asked. I think I've asked all the questions that I have.
great. Well, I think this was a successful little chat.
Yeah, man. What are you about to go do?
Um, I've got a I've got some rolls of film to drop off, and I'm very excited. Uh, they're really old. I have no idea what's on them anymore. So I'll get those developed. I should get them next week. Some scans, and then tonight I'm going to the mission, and there's this dude that like found me at a coffee shop I played at, and like just followed me, and like he came to my release show, and he loves my music, um, and I've just been thinking more about like who I spend time with.
Hmm.
It's like there's a lot of there's a lot of great people in my life, and sometimes we're reaching and searching for the wrong people instead of just being grateful for the people that are in our lives.
Yeah.
And I was like, this dude seems really cool. Like, he seems like a nice guy, and like he's like a really big fan of me and like totally unashamed of it, which I think is hilarious. And so I just hit him up. I was like, hey, you want to get coffee? And so we're gonna grab some coffee in the mission tonight. Um,
Oh, nice, dude. We've got a date.
yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's like my my quasi girlfriend, I like to call her. She goes, "Have fun with your super fan." Um, but no, he's just a sweet guy. He just seems really down to earth, and I'm excited about that. But yeah, dude, life's been fucking killer. Like, I feel like the whole time you and I were friends before you moved to Chicago, I was just a mess. Uh, and it's weird to
Mm,
like be like stable and happy and like there's things going on. I'm booking shows and um, I don't know. I feel good, and I guess I just wanted to say that because the record is so dark, and it's just nice
right.
to like. I feel like I'm putting that album to sleep. Just like okay,
Mm.
that was that,
And that
and
must feel nice. It's like you sort of like packaged those feelings in a way. I mean, I'm sure they'll still persist in some way, but
sure.
like you really worked through them in that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And when I released it, I was really worried about who's gonna listen, how many people are gonna listen. Could I get on
Mm,
a radio show? Could I get blah blah blah? And then I had to remind myself, this is something my dad used to do to me when I was younger. He would ask me really simple questions to get me to see what the truth was in the situation. So I said, like, why do I write music? Like, why did I make this?
mm,
And then I thought about that and I was like, oh, because I needed to. And I love writing.
right.
And I needed to process what I was going through. And I needed to prove to myself that I could make something like this. And it's like there's so much gratification in processing your life and being able to create art and make something really beautiful out of a time that was just really devastating. And
Yeah.
it's like when I started asking myself questions like that, like, well, did you do it because you wanted to impress somebody? Or did you do it because you thought it was going to be like a pop record and you'd, you know, blow up in stardom. It's like, no, I never even wanted that. And I just
Mm,
have to remind myself like why I do this.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget that. When I was younger, I was really obsessed with this girl. I was probably in my early 20s. And my dad goes like, and I wasn't sure if I should date her or something like that. And he goes, uh, is she kind to you? Yeah. Do you think she's attractive? Yeah. Do you like spending time with her? Yeah. Does she make you laugh? Yeah. So what's the problem?
Nice.
You
That's
know?
good. Yeah.
So now I
You
do
were like really
that.
overcomplicating it in your head.
Oh yeah, totally. It's so complicated. And it's like, dude, the reality is like I made something that's gonna last forever.
Mm,
And I took a snapshot of my life. And
yep.
on top of that, there were a few people that really gave a fuck. And I'm really lucky. Like, I'm really, really, really lucky to have people like you in my world that are like invested and even care and like want to
Hmm.
do something like this. And like, I don't have to, when I first met you, I think I told you this, but I thought people were lying to me. Like, I thought that like I really sucked and everybody around me just didn't want me to like kill myself or something. So they told me I was good. And now, like, I really genuinely believe that the people in my life like want me to keep making music. And it's like, I don't know. I'm getting
Wow.
emotional thinking about all of this. But yeah, it's really fucking special and I'm just glad to make records. Who knows what
Yeah, dude,
happens. So,
it's hard to get past that what if everyone's lying to me about my shit being good,
mhm.
like, and for me it was kind of just like kind of like you said in the beginning, like I just have to get over that. I think I just have to make stuff that I want to hear and let that be like the base satisfaction that I get
Right.
from doing this. And if my friends like it, cool. If my family likes it, cool. If there's other people out in the world who I don't know who like it, even cooler. And then coolest, I think would be, because I also don't want to be a pop star ever, but I think coolest would be like Adrian Lanker level fame, or
Yeah.
maybe at tops like Wilco level fame or something, where
Right.
it's just like,
They're pretty there's a huge gap in between those two.
I
But
know, but that's like the max. I think for me, I would never want to be like,
right.
you know
You know what I've learned about that level though? Like the
like
Pine Groves
granddaddy or
and
something.
the
Yeah,
Pine
Pine
Groves
Grove.
and the Big Thieves of the world and the Andy Schaafs.
Hmm.
I learned um, from different friends I've made in the industry that it's really fucking hard.
Why?
It's grueling. It's like it's constant. It's grueling. Um, there's so much you have to do now. Like it's not. I mean, I think it was always difficult, but like the amount of touring and like there's just it's a job. It's just a job and it has its own problems and it's hard on like your body and it's hard on, your psyche um and also like the other part of that is like you just don't make as much money as like people think you do. Like these people aren't
Mm,
living in like, nice houses in Hollywood. Like there's like really successful people our age that make music that's like still live with their parents because it's just really, it's like these labels like I'm just saying it's rough and it's not what
yeah.
people think it is. It's like a
I
lot of work.
Yeah, and I mean, when I sort of like pedestalized that level of fame, I wasn't really thinking that, damn, life would be a lot easier if that
Right.
were me. What I was thinking was, that's like that's the kind of legacy I'd like to leave behind as far as my
Right.
music goes. I'd like
Yeah.
to be that cool, you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that legitimate where like you have a fan base, but it's like devoted and small and
Yeah,
like
right.
you're known as somebody who can really write and like no one writes for you and shit like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude.
Oh man. Always great catching up with you, man.
Yeah, I gotta run myself, but so good to see you and thank you for agreeing to do this. Whose idea was this? Mine, right?
It was yours, but then I think you forgot about it. And so I was like, dude, are we gonna fucking do it?
Right.
So in a way, it was like both of ours.
Oh, that's cute.
Bye. Have fun on your date with your super fan.
Fuck to see you, brother. Have a
Yep.
good night.
See ya.
Cheers.
Good night.